Hey, what's up, y'all? It's poppin'. It's D. About to react to this vid by Intellectual Media. This is Black Women in the Hygiene Olympics. Okay, someone sent me this video. I'm really interested to see what she has to say about this topic because I have a lot of thoughts about this as well. Okay, I do think it's really interesting how Black people they tend to want to overcompensate with their hygiene. It's just so odd and excessive. Like, just seeing the things that Black people say online about how they add like bleach to their bath water and bleach to their dishes, and just seeing these endless videos on YouTube, these hygiene routines that these Black girls put up, and they got like 50 products that they're using. It's just so over the top. And it definitely comes from a place of Black people feeling inferior and feeling like they have to scrub off their blackness, or they have to be more clean than every other race to try to, I guess, even the score in some type of weird way. Also, a lot of these weird hygiene practices have been passed down like generation to generation, and a lot of Black people don't question it. They just tend to do the same things that their parents did and their grandparents did. But at some point, you need to think for yourself and ask yourself why. Why is your grandmother telling you that you need to scrub the black off your elbows? You need to scrub yourself hard in the tub. I remember taking a bath over my grandma's house. I used to hate that shit because she really wanted me to scrub my body. I'm like, lady, like what is there to scrub? I'm not that dirty. Like, I've been chilling in the house all day. Like, what do you want from me? And it's just sad that Black people feel like they need to cleanse away their blackness, and I don't think they understand it. I think it might be subconscious for a lot of Blacks, but it's definitely a thing. And it's sad when I see, you know, people post things like, oh, I take 3 showers a day, and first off, it's cap. Okay, a lot of y'all are lying, but even those of you who are actually doing that, it's like, what are you trying to compensate for? Just stop. You don't need to prove that you're clean enough. Because I feel like being Black is also associated with being dirty, stereotypically, of course. So people tend to want to wash that away and just be really extreme in their beliefs about hygiene. It goes really deep. So I hope she goes deep, because it goes deep. Okay, I'm hoping that's where we're going in this conversation. So, given that it's called the Hygiene Olympics, I feel like that's where she's going, because it's like, oh, Black people trying to compete with each other on who's the cleanest, and I'm cleaner than you, and it's a lot. Okay, it's a lot. Anyway, I want to see what she has to say. Let's watch.
You don't shower every day? I don't shower every day.
And let's be clear, this does not mean you need to be dirty, though, because I do think, I'm not going to shame anyone for their own hygiene practices. That has nothing to do with me. But I do think that you should be showering daily. You know, but if you don't, sure. I have heard arguments of people saying that, oh, well, if I'm sitting around the house all day and I'm not doing anything, and, you know, I skip a day, then it's not a big deal. I do agree with that. I'm not going to sit here and say I've showered every single day for all my life. No, I've obviously missed some days of showering. It happens sometimes. But I don't think you should make a habit out of it. And I do think you should shower, you know, as much as you possibly can, because you do have to cleanse away the dirt at some point. But it's just, yeah, don't be excessive about it. But I think you should still wash your ass.
Why would I need a washcloth? To wash yourself with. It's in the name. Washcloth.
pH balance is off, and you wanna know why? It's not because you're born with it. It's because y'all keep dirty ass.
I wash my hole. I wash my asshole. I wash my everything.
You should not be washing your vagina hole. That's, girl.
I'm a big fan of waiting for the steak.
When you're 69, your ass ain't but 1 inch from your loved one's nose.
I wash my mother ass.
Not so fresh down there?
No, there must be something wrong with you.
You got to wash your ass.
Y'all take 365 showers a year.
No.
Black people use washcloths? I don't know any you don't.
I want you to stop acting bougie like you ain't washed that in the sink. Because I know you have.
Your dick smell like mustard.
When I was in middle and high school, the one rumor a Black girl could not escape was regarding her genitals. Her stinks was the insult and slander
the...
like being called a hoe that needed no
bad.
verification and could spread like wildfire.
Hey, girl.
One rumor or one bad day was all it took. Of course, very few people like having an odor, vaginal or otherwise, but in the black community, there's a recurring contest over hygiene habits that often comes across as performative. Think about the backlash to social media influencer B. Simone oversharing that she takes showers every 2 to 3 days, or the commotion over Summer Walker using a washing bowl. In response, some black women declared that they showered 2 to 3 times a day, sometimes more. Others encouraged the women to...
Girl, shut the fuck up. I take 2 to 3 showers a day. Morgues, go to hell, and it's cap. You are lying. You have a full-time job, and you shower 2 to 3 times a day. How? A shower a day is mandatory. Who's teaching these women hygiene? Girl, shut up.
They showered 2 to 3 times a day, sometimes more. Others encouraged
I take like, all right, Raven, go to hell.
And while 2 to 3 showers may be understandable if you live in the belly-aching heat with little AC access, for those of us in mild temperatures, it's not necessary. And douches, contrary to popular belief, are never necessary. Yeah. So why does the black community, especially black women, keep engaging in hygiene Olympics on social media? It's fun to discuss, to a degree, the ways in which we're different. And for people who didn't grow up learning about hygiene, the conversations can be helpful. Yes, change your toothbrushes, towels, and wash rags frequently. And don't neglect that ass crack. But where does the overcompensating, 3 showers a day, douching with Lysol, etc. come from? How does it fit into a broader pattern of mainly white celebrities sharing that they don't bathe? And more pressingly, how has the vulva health of black women been compromised due to the desire to escape racist stereotypes and not be compared to people who don't wash their legs? First, we'll have to talk about hygiene history.
I'm washing me in my clothes, bitch. I'm washing me in my clothes.
But first, can I get a round of applause for this video's sponsor, Beducated? If you love my videos, you've liked... PDH, or public displays of hygiene culture, didn't blossom overnight. Think of all the song lyrics about smelling like water, nothing, or sweet desserts. Plus all the lyrics by artists from Rico Nasty to Cardi B to Lil Wayne mentioning stank or comparing to fish. Remember when eating pineapples for...
Makes me think of Mentally Mitch. We gotta stop with this slave mentality, guys.
A sweet taste was all the rage. I have family members, black southern women reared in the mid-20th century.
I'm not saying Mitch has a slave mentality. I'm just saying I think it's whatever.
Whose douchebags mixed with Lysol and who sprinkled their panties with talcum-based baby powder. Searches on social media and internet forums show this practice of toxic chemical as a cleanser has never died. There's a genre of YouTube and TikTok videos of black women walking the viewers through their massive collection of hygiene products.
I just said this.
Rating hygiene products for quick fixes that likely do damage in the long term. When noting an uptick of black people's purchases of hygiene and personal care products in 1969, D. Park Gibson, the founder of the first black PR firm, wrote, "Undoubtedly, much of the desire for cleanliness is to overcome the prejudicial old wives' tale that all Negroes smell bad." The racist misconception that black people are inherently dirty blossomed during American slavery for a number of reasons. In Africa, cleanliness has long been a central component of various cultures. Enter the rise of the intercontinental chattel slave trade. While being kept for months in slave dungeons on the coast of West Africa, enslaved people wallowed in various body excrements, blood, urine, feces, vomit, etc., until being transported on equally unsanitary ships for months at a time. In Solomon Northrup's 12 Years a Slave, Patsy, a teenage girl being raped by the sadistic enslaver Edwin Epps, was refused soap by the man's wife, both to punish and humiliate her, but also to deter the enslaver from continuing to forsake his vows. Patsy sneaks off the plantation to go get some soap, and when caught, she tells Epps, "Missus don't give me soap to wash with as she does the rest, and you know why." It's clear how important hygiene was to Patsy and other black women to risk injury or death for a bar of soap. Some enslavers withheld soap as a form of punishment, and others simply didn't provide the enslaved with soap to save money, seeing it as unnecessary because the enslaved were not actually humans with basic needs. This neglect of hygiene caused death and illness for all enslaved people. But for black women, their fragile vaginal microbiomes were no doubt impacted by the conditions. Additionally, the sexual assault of black women and consensual sex with partners with less than adequate hygiene could further complicate matters. When you mix in the long-term historical aversion and demonization of vaginas because of monthly periods, the Old Testament literally calls this period of time for women unclean and claims that it makes those who come into contact with it also unclean. The desire to be clean and project cleanliness is no big surprise. With freedom from slavery came a renewed desire for and access to cleanliness. It would be enfolded into respectability politics, being better than the stereotype given to us by racism, as well as a religious tenet.
And I'm saying people need therapy because it's so much trauma and so much shit that people are harboring, excuse me, and they may not even be aware of it. So sometimes it's necessary to go to therapy and figure things out, get that shit out, because this is wild.
Cleanliness is next to godliness, and plus it made good sense. Even still, racist ads at the turn of the century continued linking blackness with filth, like the infamous Pear soap ads that washed off black skin. Meanwhile, germ theory was making bathing with warm water and soap a regular recommendation. In fact, segregated public bathhouses would spring up in urban centers like New York, Philadelphia, and Chicago. Mind you, this is centuries after the ancient baths and habits of the Moors, India, China, Japan, etc. And prior to the 50s, when public bathhouses fell out of popularity with the rise of home plumbing, black Americans would own and patron black bathhouses. Right before the dawn of the 20th century, douching became a popular option for contraception. Though douching after sex only reduces the chance of contraception by about 30%, I'm sure women of the day took what they could get. And thanks to obscenity standards from the 1873 Comstock Act, douches and vaginal syringes were billed as feminine hygiene products. Later, after the availability of condoms and diaphragms, the latter of which was the most prescribed birth control by the 1930s, douche advertising morphed. A recurring theme reflected the target audience: otherwise perfect women who ruined their marriages because they didn't pump benzalkonium chloride or other chemicals into their vaginas to control odor. That benzalkonium chloride is Lysol, by the way, a brand you likely have below your sink. It advertised itself throughout the 20th century as a gentle cleanser, far more effective than vinegar douches. After World War II, two important things happened. The consumer economy reignited, and companies slowly began seeing black people as a worthwhile consumer base. So, advertisements for douching to black women became more numerous in the years to come. In the Chicago Defender, Lysol told black women that their product would leave them smelling sweet, clean, and dainty. A 1967 Ebony ad for Massengill douching products said, "It's a feeling of thorough inner cleanliness that only a Massengill douche gives." 6 years later, Massengill informed Ebony readers that douches clean out vaginas after intercourse and wash away normal vaginal secretions. There are a lot of ads for douches in Ebony magazine from the 60s to the 90s, and meanwhile, douching did not start to be officially discouraged by medical professionals until the 80s, and it was a slow process. Plus, for girls and women with a combined lack of healthcare access, family members who use douches, and no public school supplied sex education about vaginal care, the continued ads were just the cherry on top. Rather than addressing why vaginal odor occurs, wearing tight non-cotton underwear, the cheating dicks of partners, or the dirty fingers or tongues of partners, inadequate diets or water intake, feminine hygiene products that destroy the body's natural pH, etc., those feminine hygiene products become integral to a woman's routine. A 2002 study found that black women are 34% more likely to douche than white women. And though this is often to prevent or treat an odor, douches actually cause bacterial vaginosis. A 2002 review of multiple studies found a link between douching and certain cancers. And a 2015 study found that black women in the sample who douched had 48% higher levels of an endocrine system disrupting chemical that extends product fragrance shelf life. Feminine wipes and gels were linked to urinary tract infections in a 2018 survey. And douches during pregnancy increase the risk of preterm birth. Most interestingly, research has indicated a link between intimate partner violence and douching. Summed up Dr. Angela K. Guy Lee, African American women and white women that are most likely to douche have limited educational and economic resources. They are often reliant on male intimate partners for resources. Their lack of power in intimate relationships makes it more difficult for these women to refuse sex, require condom usage, and leave abusive relationships. Additionally, in IPV relationships, or relationships where sexual currency is key, if a woman needs to heal from an STD, wait for her period to end, or be treated for BV, the need to use a quick-acting douche to keep a partner satisfied isn't shocking. It's well documented that both women and especially men lack a knowledge of female genitalia. Shit, think of the historical misconception that large clitorises or long labia lips, aka beef curtains, are signs of being overused or stretched out. Or the hoteps who claim black women's periods aren't natural. So obviously when it comes to how vulvas should smell and what should be done if there's an odor, dangerous misconceptions have always abounded. Declared 3-6 Mafia's Juicy J in 1999, slob on my knob. I started to knock, then came the odor, smelled like mush, should have had a whoosh, told her to stop and take a douche. Of course, Juicy J isn't a doctor or influencer, but douching is the most popular in the black community, and I couldn't resist a 3-6 Mafia reference. And while the prevalence of women in America who douche has dropped from 30% in 2000 to approximately 1 in 5, feminine hygiene companies as a whole continue to push their products, advertised as being for the exterior vulva. In 2010, Summer's Eve ran an ad in Women's Day titled Confidence at Work, How to Ask for a Raise, and listed 8 pieces of advice, the first being doing all the things you do to feel your best, including showering with Summer's Eve feminine wash and carrying around packets of Summer's Eve feminine cleansing floss. The message was, of course, that you may not be eligible for a raise if your pussy has a natural scent.
Yeah, what?
The Honey Pot was founded by Patrice Dixon in 2014 and was special because it was plant-based. In an interesting marketing twist, Dixon said the idea for the wash in the company came to her from an ancestor. And when the Honey Pot changed ingredients in 2022, there was intense backlash by a core audience of black customers due to a new ingredient that would extend shelf life, but that black chemists on Twitter rebuked. By 2032, intimate wash products are projected to be a market worth approximately $7.92 billion, despite the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists not recommending such products for use by anyone. But even as I say that, it must be noted that black women-specific studies of our vulvas and vaginas have only recently been studied at great length. A lot of vaginal health has been filtered through studies with a bias towards white women, but there are ethnic differences. A 2014 study, for instance, found that women of European ancestry are more likely to harbor a lactobacillus-dominated microbiome, whereas African American women are more likely to exhibit a diverse microbial profile. Per the study, ethnicity, pregnancy, and alcohol use correlated significantly with the relative abundance of bacterial vaginosis-associated species. Trends between microbial profiles in smoking and number of sexual partners were observed. However, these associations were not statistically significant. In addition to being more likely to develop BV, black women are more likely to have recurring yeast infections. Knowing how sensitive our are, perhaps this is why so many of us tend to have the same visceral reactions of disgust when people are careless with their pH balance. And also, maybe this is why so much steadfast public displays of hygiene occur when someone black doesn't follow hygiene rules. While black social media users continually argue over hygiene practices, from how often to wash and replace rags, to whether or not B. Simone was trolling for marketing purposes, white people casually mention less than stellar hygiene practices like not washing legs and taking more shits and having more sex in a year than they do showers. No, I didn't make that up. Someone tweeted...
Wait, what? Went outside, pooped, socialized, worked, took Adderall. Why are you keeping track of this? Drank alcohol, danced, had sex, showered 30... Bye.
Their record for 2022. They did it proudly. They put it all out on the timeline. They do not live under the shadow of the racism that made black people inherently dirty. The same racism that made many enslaved people live in unhygienic conditions. In an essay by a white preventative medicine and public health physician who makes no mention of bowel movements, he explains why he doesn't shower. You stop smelling bad. I mean, you don't smell like rose water or Axe body spray, but you don't smell like BO either. You just smell like a person. I've been at enough packed clubs, bars, and airports in my life to tell you that people stink. This guy's primary incentive for not showering was winning back the time that showers take, which seems to be a hefty price for making people smell the sweat, shit, and dirt caked on your orifices. Then there are other takes that caring about hygiene is classist and that being offended by body odor is problematic. In this view, poor people are seen as the literal great unwashed who don't care about hygiene because they're too busy trying to survive. On one hand, there are extremely impoverished people, particularly children, who lack hygiene care access, something that many school counselors note every year when having community charity drives and fundraisers. But on the other hand, considering the rich celebs who brag about skipping basic hygiene, making a conscious choice to go without washing your ass when you have the tools to do so is not noble or unslanderable. Wrote Nicole Froyo, these quirky confessions of bad personal hygiene are seldom about access or the dehumanization of being seen as dirty. They're about some kind of personal freedom rhetoric. Not washing your legs or not taking a shower every day is not class rebellion, but a display of which bodies are allowed to be unwashed without stigma attached. So, I said earlier, people be stinking, especially to us lucky sons of bitches with very sensitive noses. I smell when you haven't brushed your teeth, I smell when you've eaten large amounts of garlic, and I can also smell when you spritz expensive perfume over week-old sweat. You're not obligated to smell good for me, but I'm not buying that most non-sociopathic people are consciously choosing to have offensive body odor. Public schools historically have not taught full body cleanliness, nor do they teach that some foods, like fish and garlic, for instance, can cause vaginal and body odors for some people. People get comfortable in their own scent and hygiene habits, and that can be hard to break by adulthood. Most people rely on parents, friends, and advertisers telling them how they smell. If they feel comfortable enough squeezing in a question at a 30-minute gynecologist appointment, maybe they will, if they can afford it, you know. But a lot of people have been on their own. And when it comes to the Hygiene Olympics on social media, I'd like for us to be gentler with people who have poor hygiene habits by making hygiene info more available without being condescending. It'd also be great if we could recognize that lack of self-hygiene from poor mental health, prominently depression, by people who otherwise know how to wash. It'd be great if we could extend them grace that life otherwise doesn't seem to be extending. If someone is depressed to the point of suicidal ideation, for example, would it be surprising if they stopped giving a fuck about hygiene? Does this mean not busting out laughing or trading jokes when someone proudly says they don't wash their butt cracks or legs out of like LOL, a choice? No. Or when someone insists that poor people don't wash, a lie, as plenty of poor people will tell you. No, run those jokes. But understanding that sometimes neglect of hygiene is a sign of mental spiraling or depression can be a step forward for destigmatizing mental health overall. I'd also like to see legislation making pads and tampons free, especially in prison and for homeless people, though for everyone would be nice. There are 16.9 million people living in poverty who have periods in the U.S., with about 2/3 having to choose between buying food or menstrual products. By the way, only 4 states in New York City provide free tampons and pads to inmates, and only 17 states in Washington, D.C. provide free products to school students. habits. In jails and prisons, there are reports of soap and feminine products being withheld as punishment, which is especially pertinent to black women because we're 3 times as likely to be imprisoned more than any race. Also, in the future, I'd like there to be more research and solutions focused on black vulva owners because often our needs have been sacrificed on the helm of misogyny and racism. What does our more diverse vaginal microbiome mean for current and future vaginal products? Will we one day look back on some of these same contemporary products with the same disbelief as talcum baby powder by Johnson & Johnson, which has been linked to cancer? And as I film this right now, there's literally a period panty company that's being sued for alleged toxicity in its products. Will girls one day be my age and recount their female relatives using Lysol douches and baths? Or will the dutiful gynecologists dispelling vaginal myths on TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube change the next generation? Lastly, will future women desire for their pussies to smell and taste like water? Or like if you like
Wow, this was a great video. This was super informative, and she went deep. I appreciate that. She went back to slavery. I was thinking back to, well, obviously it stems from slavery, but I was thinking back to like Jim Crow era. I'm like, yeah, because black people were told that they're dirty, so of course they would want to go home and scrub. Oh no, I'm actually clean, you know. So a lot of that is just from black people just being psychologically fucked up. That's why I said therapy is needed. It is needed. Okay, a lot of black people have so much trauma, and it's so crazy because people talk about how, oh, you guys make everything about race. Niggas are fucking mentally disturbed. You don't understand unless you are black. You don't know all of the struggles and trauma that have, you know, been built up in so many black people. And a lot of that trauma is also passed down. You can't really escape it when your parents or their parents have been so fucking traumatized and they're passing that shit down to you, even if you are living in a society that has, you know, progressed or whatever the case. It's just a lot. This shit goes very deep. But y'all really want people to chill out with the Hygiene Olympics. I'm not doing all this extra shit to try to prove that I'm clean enough or I'm cleaner than, you know, other races. I'm not doing all of that. I'm not using 50 products when I get out the shower. Like I said, just look at some of these hygiene routines, and a lot of them are done by black women. It's really sad to see. It's like, girl, you don't need all of this. What are you trying to cover up? And if you do have an odor that you feel like you need to cover up with all of these products, it's probably because you have an infection of some sort. So you need to go see your doctor. But, you know, otherwise you don't need all of that. Just wash your ass daily and you good to go. What is this? It's just a lot. Like I said, this goes deep. But yeah, she did a really good job at summarizing this. Y'all let me know what y'all think, though. Let me know what other videos you want to watch, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!